If F-Stoppers is reaching out to me and is going to do a story, I have to address this. I can't just let it work out the legal system. Guys, legal system, you know how slow it is? The only courtroom in this world that matters is the court of public opinion. And so I submit to you, the jury, this is my case.
Everyone in the comment section was doing these mental gymnastics to paint Jason as the victim in clips where nothing happened.
And by the way, when you actually look into the allegations, there's nothing there. I mean, we're talking people about complaining about me placing my hand on the small of their back. That's not sexual misconduct. So here are some examples of people acting inappropriately with me. Jade did a wonderful job.
So did you.
Well, thank you, Miss Jade. I'm tired.
Me too.
How are you? Snooze.
On Instagram.
Millennial brat at millennialbrat.com.
You know what? Just find me on Jason's Instagram. That's where you can find me.
Until I delete you.
Hey, that's so nice.
You may be asking yourself when you see these examples, well, why don't you tell them no? Why don't you tell them to get away from you? Why don't you tell them this? Why don't you tell them that? It's simple. I'm trying to do a shoot.
And then he talks about how I'm hanging on to him when my hand is just on his back because we're in Mardi Gras. If anyone's been to Mardi Gras, you have to touch the person in front of you or you will probably lose them and never see them again. You'll probably die.
Some of these people that have worked with me will literally hang all over me.
So I'm jumping up and down behind him because I'm excited about Mardi Gras. And he said, you see this? This girl's cleaning on me and her boobs are on me. I'm like, well, actually that kind of speaks more to your pervert mentality that that's what you're conscious of after all that. I'm not even thinking about that.
They'll put themselves on me. They'll put their chests against me. They'll put their butts against me.
And he keeps making the comment about how our breasts are against him. First of all, we're not thinking that. We're not trying, girls do not show guys that they love them by just pushing their boobs on them. Like, that's not like a thing.
Her biggest claim on that first time is that I kissed her on the cheek, but she said, oh, that's pretty typical. They'll hug me. They'll kiss me. People, shoot some models and kill it. You ready?
Do you want to get a kiss from the camera? Got you.
That was me being cute. That was me being snarky. I mean, a lot of times, you gotta try to sell that you actually like this creep. So yeah, a lot of times you do stuff like that. Not that he really complained because later he says this.
And when it happens, I really don't know what to do. I grew up with a father who was a farmer who believed in taking care of women and just being nice. So if somebody puts their elbow on me or puts something on me, it's not the end of the world. My hands are in my pockets. I'm good. I've come to find out we live in a world that you can't even keep your hands in your pockets and be good anymore, my friends. Yes, people make unwanted advances towards me. Yes, it makes me feel uncomfortable. And that is why I let so many of them go.
We get into a discussion. Okay, so he does talk about how I'm starting to find my role and he actually told me that we were holding hands and walking, and he said, "I think that you're really trusting the role."
Guys, legal system. You know how slow it is? The only courtroom in this world that matters is the court of public opinion. And so I submit to you, the jury, this is my case.
For me, it sounds more like Jason is trying to be petty and reframe affection he originally encouraged as sexual assault, since, considering his obvious sexist thinking, he is conflating any touch with assault, completely ignoring power dynamics, minimizing things like butt slaps. Further, he's a fucking YouTuber. Forget ruining a shoot or calling attention to a camera. Why not pull a model aside or even text them in advance since you're also laid back and tell them you're not comfortable with that type of behavior if you're really that put off by it? Because let's not forget, Jason has prided himself on that laid back environment where people would be sleeping on the floor, group chats would be talking about love languages, and models would be hanging off his shoulders at the end of the videos.
It was just the way it was. People are on beds, people are on couches. It's kind of like a gypsy. It's kind of like a nomad. We're just making it work. You got one person on a couch, one person on a floor, one person on a bed. That became commonplace. When I got a little bit more money, we could afford to do stuff like I get suites. The vast majority of the time, it's always been a suite, like a residence inn, where we're setting up and there's 2 bedrooms. I'm separated in 1 bedroom, there's another person in 1 bedroom, and more often than not, it was 2 models sharing a bed on the sofa bed, to be honest with you guys. That's the way it's been. So when you have people tell you, just put me in your bags, or I'll drag your bags for you, I just want to be there, and then they turn around and stab you in the back and say, oh, there's only 1 bed. Now they fail to mention there's like sofa beds, rollaways, and all sorts of other stuff.
In the past, there were instances when we stayed with you in suites, with your room being separated and us being on a pull-out couch. This was not the case. There was 1 bed and it wasn't separated. They left the room and I immediately checked the couch, confused, especially since it was obvious that there were 2 people already. You guys are probably wondering, how did you know someone was staying there? Well, I already knew what this employee's position consisted of. And when I got to the room, there wasn't a cot. Why weren't they, if they were staying there, why weren't they staying on a cot? Maybe they were staying on the couch, but there was definitely a person staying in that room.
I constantly kept putting you in the models' rooms, and you kept begging me to take you out of there because you didn't get along with them. Also not sure it was a spatial issue. There were 4 of us in 1 bed and 1 couch, and we were supposed to make it work. So we kind of forced a situation where we had to make things work, but again, I'll get to that.
Saying that Ken Wheeler masterminded this whole thing is ridiculous and speaks more to YouTube really needing a kick in the ass when it comes to critical thinking. I'm not saying I have all the answers here or that I'm some big brain others need to follow, but attention seekers like Jason Lanier and Ken Wheeler thrive off that shit, with a false sense of grandeur going to their fucking head, to the point that one of them is entirely dismissing Albert fucking Einstein, and the other is thinking he can fight off sexual assault allegations with sexism, ableism, ageism, and whataboutism.
Next up is Miss Sierra Green.
I said, next time, don't try to rape your companions, asshole. Go fuck yourself. Hi, Sierra. I received feedback that you're speaking ill of me and spreading lies. This not only breaks the NDA that you signed, but also opens you up to possible litigation. I paid you, you gave me a hug at the airport when we said goodbye, and we wished each other well, both in text messages, etc. Just move on before you make this worse for yourself. I hope you do so. And my response to that obvious threat was basically, we both know what you did, cut the bullcrap. I said, next time, don't try to rape your companions, asshole. Go fuck yourself. And FYI, you never gave me a signed copy of an NDA, of my NDA, but even so, I'd like to remind you that when it comes to the law, I'm allowed to speak out as much as I want. NDAs don't cover you sexually violating me, imply litigation threats to me, and I'm going to the cops, dick. And he said you were truly delusional. There was never a rape claim. When I said in the text, don't try to rape your companions. That, might have sounded extreme. When I said in the text, don't try to rape your companions or your assistants or your models, that, might have sounded extreme, but sexual assault is the step before that. So, and I don't know if wires got crossed or if it was to blow up the story a little bit, but that was where the claim kind of got a little iffy.
I should never have been put in these situations to begin with, even if I did consent. But because I did consent and because I don't have any evidence, I can't claim anything.
Truth be told, Allie left because Emily was here now, and she realized Emily wasn't going anywhere, and she wanted to do dance.
Yeah, so I knew that he was going to start telling people that I quit because of dance. He brought up, he's like, we need to do this big, goodbye for you or whatever. And we, before you leave this trip, we didn't do that. So then he asked me to go to New York, and I declined. Actually, I don't even respond. And he said, I'll take that as a no. That's because I knew what he was doing. He was trying to make sure that we knew, he could get evidence of me shooting with him one more time after I quit. and, you know, make it seem like we were good, on good terms. I didn't want that. I saw it happen to too many girls. You know, he would make them feel guilty. They would do something with him. They would send him a text message apologizing, even though it wasn't their fault, and he would use that against them. You guys saw it at the end of that video. And so I didn't want that, and I just cut off all communication. I blocked him. I got a new phone number, not because of him, but I had to get a new phone number, switch carriers. You know, he couldn't use that against me. So once he found out that I wasn't going to do a video with him, he makes that post saying, oh, she's moving on to bigger and better things for dance. And, you know, I even told one of our crew members, when I quit, I said, you know, I'll read the message to you and I'll insert it here. I said, all I know is he's going to tell people I'm not working with him because I'm pursuing dance, but that's not it at all. And it pisses me off that he gets to do that, but we can't say anything because we signed NDAs. Like, people are going to know this when he goes to New York and you and I aren't there. And we've been there multiple times with him. And he's going to say, Ali is pursuing dance and Jade gets homesick. And this girl gets homesick or whatever. Yeah, so I knew that he was going to start telling people that I quit because of dance. And again, I'll go over the reasons why I didn't quit and what happened when I did quit. But the matter of the fact is I didn't quit because of dance.
Last but not least is Miss Brenda. Brenda came to that Honduras trip in replace of Kristen. But then it wasn't until Kristen left, and then, you know, she started traveling with me around November of 2016. Brenda and I went on a lot of trips together. We went to Cuba twice. We went to Italy. We went to London. She went a lot of places. So let's just state something for the record. She has stated that I never tried anything. She has stated that the sleeping accommodations were private and appropriate.
So once he went over that, he asked if I was okay with it. So I said yes. You know, I didn't have any issues with the pay. I didn't have any issues with the duties. I didn't have any issues with the sleeping arrangements.
She has stated that she agreed to all of them prior to working, which means clearly I explain this to people. I don't spring it on them.
I typically slept on the sofa. Gave me privacy, gave this person privacy.
And clearly by her actions, she demonstrated that she trusted me.
Very similar to when I worked with him. There was nothing weird about it.
Now, Brenda says all this stuff and says that everything was great and blah, blah, blah. But then the tail end of her video, she goes into this revisionist history, doesn't give any examples for what it was, says I wanted to do certain kind of shoots, and when I wouldn't do those certain kind of shoots that I wanted to be platonic. I hope you understand what the word platonic means. It means non-sexual. It means non-romantic. It means you're friends. I mean, I cannot believe the way things are being misrepresented here.
Everything was okay. I mean, there was just some little things here and there, but during that time, I didn't pick up, you know, on them being, I guess, extremely weird or out of place. I kind of found excuses, you know, for him, I guess. Let's say somebody, you know, like my family member, my boyfriend texted me or called me or whatnot, and I took the call. I was kind of restricted in you know, the calls I took, the messages I sent, you're here, like, be present, be in the moment. And my excuse for that, I guess my excuse for him was like, yeah, you know what, Brenda, you're working. He wanted to have control, basically. Now I understand it. Back then I didn't. Back then I made excuses for him. So on several occasions, people thought that him and I were, like, together, right? I always said, oh, no, he's my boss. So once the people would leave, he would be like, oh, you know, it's okay. Like, it doesn't bother me if people think we're together. Like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to explain to other people that I'm your boss and that we're not together. Yeah, so on my last trip, I told this person that I didn't want to shoot nude anymore because I had shot nude with this person maybe two times before that trip. So this person said, yeah, I want to shoot. And I said, yeah, sure. And I said, but I don't want to shoot nude. So his look was kind of a look of disapproval. Like, he was just like, okay, I can't post those pictures. I'm not going to post them. You know, you're not going to post them. So it's like, I'm over it, you know? That was like me cutting his wings because he was this creative person, and not being able to shoot nude was like almost like the end of the world for him, honestly. So he was still upset over the whole me not wanting to shoot nude, that he called a meeting, like this emergency meeting. I think I was present for like 1% of the conversation. The reason why I was present for the last 1% of that conversation was because he ended his conversation by telling me that the only way we were going to work out the whole, you know, I guess my position with him, like my role with him, that the only way things were going to work out is if I began to behave like his platonic girlfriend. He then went to add that we were not going to sleep together, but I needed to behave like his platonic girlfriend. Mind you, I had a boyfriend at that time. He knew I had a boyfriend. He knew my boyfriend. So for this person to tell me that, I was shocked. And not just that, I was more shocked because when I was interviewed, I was never told that. I was never told, hey, this is also something that you need to do. This is also part of your role. Maybe not at the beginning, but eventually you're going to have to behave this way.
And by the way, when you actually look into the allegations, there's nothing there. I mean, we're talking people about complaining about me placing my hand on the small of their back. That's not sexual misconduct. Why would you omit that? No, that's, again, called lying by omission. If you omit it, you let their imaginations run wild.
This entire We Stand Together and Me Too movement, all of it, it was born on the backs of women who faced extreme amounts of hate and criticism, even after their claims went from allegations to verifiable fact in some cases. And subscribers on both sides are treating it as this fucking flame war instead of acknowledging we have a real fucking problem here in the photography community. Him treating Joyce like a piece of shit, dirty talking models in front of workshop attendees.
Woo! Mamacita. That's pretty caliente.
Yeah.
Go ahead and look this way. Joyce likes it caliente, don't you? My little cochinita.
Does no one remember Bill Cosby's victims catching so much shit in the beginning? Because how could America's dad, the guy who hates cussing because it's bad for family values, ever rape? Apparently the answer is easily when society by and large acts like they're all PIs while acting any fucking critical thinking. If there's any meat to the bone that would satisfy Jason's supporters, I doubt it changed their support. If anything, it changed the question from why now to why didn't you stop it? Although that might just be me being cynical. Circumstantial evidence is weak, and I'm not saying we need to just accept everything at face value because, fuck it. Let me say something that's controversial amongst even the left. Women do lie. But they are in the minority when it comes to this, and it's a fucking shame that some of them do and co-opt a movement to railroad innocent men. Or that people have to be perfect victims in order to be believed, as though anyone criticizing is a fucking saint who's never made a mistake. And you're gonna need to look this up because you're not gonna believe me, but if you want to know why people don't turn to the police when it comes to sexual assault, just take the extreme example of rape. There are cases of these rape kits being neglected for years, some even destroyed after decades due to incompetent departments. And this doesn't just hurt women either. While looking this up, there was a story of this one guy, Rashad Bullen or something like that, who petitioned the court for a DNA test of his rape kit post a conviction, and they destroyed it without warning. And this is important because Oklahoma law, where he was convicted, requires them to retain this evidence so long as he was incarcerated. So yeah, they fucked up, to say the least. I know it's taboo to even suggest law enforcement would fuck up on cases this heinous, which is why I'm sure none of the models would even want to speak out on what's happening, besides the investigation is going on, but I'm saying it. There is a problem with how we deal with sex crimes, and women are often left to fend for themselves. There are seldom perfect victims in the scenario. So even if everything Jason Lanier said about these women is true, and they're mentally ill from broken homes, constantly bothering him to go on these travels in suitcases, and lied about reasons why they left, all I care about is if they are telling the truth. Because despite hours of footage Jason put out in his defense, he spends most of it attacking these women's character while reframing accusations like that Jade Galloway post he misrepresented earlier. I don't care who was in a music video, no matter how questionable in nature, or who is in a bikini or half naked on a separate shoot. I only care if these people are telling the truth. And that's all that should matter here. Are they telling the truth? And obviously I can't answer that, but Jason is trying really hard to convince you he can. And again, he's been proven wrong. Because it doesn't matter how the relationship ended between Jason and these people. That's besides the fact. Because as Joyce's case has shown, and as several models have claimed, there is evidence he orchestrates these kinds of last-minute videos to prove all is well, so he can easily dismiss any later claims because, hey, why would they be okay with me on this last shoot if they hated me before that?
There's a video on the We Stand Together channel from Kira Lawrence talking about how she doesn't like me. That has nothing to do with this topic.
Oh yeah, Kira, what do you think about the workshop as a model, first time with Jason Lanier?
It's not my first time.
I know, but we're talking.
Okay.
Hey, Kira, what do you think about working with Jason Lanier?
Honestly, it's been such a beautiful experience to work with him. He definitely knows what he's doing. He's able to pose, doing the lighting. It's great as a model to actually have someone that can give you direction, because a lot of the times you're kind of just meandering around, and it's so great to have so many photographers on set, so I have so many different types of looks, which I love, all different types of angles and emotions and feelings, and I'm really getting to know you guys, and I'm having one heck of a time.
Awesome. I was going to ask you to stop.
He just did that video where it was the two girls in the front seat of the car, and it shows the girl's name. Where's my history tab at here? It shows the girl's name. Oh yes, model testimonials with Kara Lawrence, testimonials. But the problem is he's only put up the second video. The second video in this, what I assume is a series of model testimonials. And already, second video, we have Kara Lawrence right here, big on the screen. There's her name. And right below the video, Kara Lawrence commented, "Whoa, I don't condone this." As a matter of fact, as soon as I saw it, I know where my phone is, as soon as I saw it, I did a screenshot. She's saying, "I don't condone your behavior. I don't like you. I liked Cuba. I didn't like you." Guess what? He deleted the comment. Why doesn't she have a right to speak her mind? You use her face and her name in a video to talk about, look how much she loved it. And then she actually comes to the video and says, whoa, 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 slow down. Actually, shit, no. And you delete the comments and try to make it go away?
What do you think about working with Jason Lanier?
He posted this new video showing that I'm not a molester. I didn't touch those women, right? So how come every time someone makes a post, he deletes it? Like, look at this, Kira Lawrence right here. She just posted the one that's in his video that he's like, I didn't touch her. See how happy she is when I took her on a trip? She wrote here, you should take, oh, come on, focus, you fuck. You should take this off. It's embarrassing. I don't condone your behavior. I like Cuba, not you, right? But what happens when you go down here and you try to like add a reply? Error loading, tapped. That means he deleted it.
I did not want to make this video, but Jason kind of forced me into the light by posting my testimony. Let me make this very clear. I do not like, nor do I trust that man. I would not recommend young women to work for him. I would like for him to take that video of me down. When they ask me if I liked him, I'm not going to say during the job, no, I find him really creepy and inappropriate and I won't work with him ever again. That's not what you say when you're working with someone. I just figured I would never work with him ever again. Another reason why I didn't want to make this video is because I didn't want to be slandered online, but sometimes you have to have the courage to be disliked. I hope that someday he looks himself in the mirror and sees what kind of human he is. I'm living my truth. I hope someday you live yours.
And I want to take that moment to get a little personal, because while writing the script for this video, I came across a creator talking about men, trauma, and abuse. And obvious trigger warnings here, but I am a victim of this type of manipulation and abuse as well. Not from some rockstar photographer, but by an ex-girlfriend. And if she's stalking my social media, oh fucking well. Don't worry, fucker. I'm not gonna name drop you. I just want to put that trauma to use. So the crux of many of these people arguments is, again, why now? It's easier to prevent victims from seeing the truth about the situation they're in when they feel people, even former coworkers, hate them. It prevents victims from connecting when a lot of the gaslighting and outright bullshit is ingrained long after the abuser has left. So they don't even need to be there for you to think their thoughts. When I was with my ex-girlfriend, let's call her Becky, she used the faintest whisper of the truth to make up this lie that I easily bought into due to my own low self-esteem at the time. I thought people were just fucking me over left and right. Little did I know she was cheating on me and just wanted to keep me away from people who could have told me. It was so bad she got me to stop talking to my best friend of a decade because she told me he was telling me I was being dramatic about a stalker. That's another story, but I wanted to prove my best friend wrong by cutting him out of my life completely without even talking to them. Grade A fucking maturity there, right? It took me 4 years of that hell to really see what a total cunt Becky was, and I know, sexist language reinforcing the patriarchy, fuck off. I'm so over PC politics taking priority over context, specifically when it comes to language over praxis, and that's probably a ham-fisted way of describing the situation, but it explains why I'm cussing so fucking much. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is it's extremely easy for manipulators to implant these ideas in victims long after they're gone. So the abuser doesn't even need to be present for you to hear their voice criticizing you. They instill this warped sense of logic that turns into self-hate. And that's something I don't think gets a lot of talk or even acknowledgement, but surviving trauma involves becoming an expert on the subject, at least when you're lucky enough to heal from it to the point where you can joke about it to everyone's discomfort. Point is, for anyone who's ever been in a gross, healthy, trauma-free relationship where you don't even need to learn the glorious tactic called gray rocking. No, I'm not defining that for you. Google that shit. You need to understand, you don't walk away from these types of relationships, romantic or otherwise, knowing the full details of your trauma. I, again, obviously can't speak for these women, but personally I did not realize I had certain hang-ups until confronted with them by triggers or seemingly unrelated comments or situations. It just kind of comes at you full force. And again, despite where you stand on the issue, you can't say these models have been accepted with open arms from everyone. There is a lot of support now, but I've kept tabs on this issue long enough to notice the shift in tone didn't really take hold until David Wheeler came out with these compilation videos. Now, imagine he never did that. How many of those turned around supporters would go on claiming these women were liars? I know he deleted a lot of the videos, but some of those creepier comments and actions are things I still remember in past content. I remember thinking he was creepy like most others, but I don't know, maybe they were friends or worked up to that relationship. I don't know. So when these allegations came out, I first heard of them through Jason's own video and tried looking past his YouTube persona and into the arguments he was making. there wasn't shit to it. I thought others would be able to see the same, but instead I saw people completely overlook the obvious flaws in Jason's logic and immediately hang on to this Ken Wheeler narrative. There's people still trying to prove he's behind the We Stand Together channel and this David Weller account, as though either fucking matters or nullifies what these women are saying or what is being shown. Even if Ken stopped uploading long enough to set up an account and organize a YouTube channel for these women, do you honestly think that would invalidate what these women are saying? Or if he is behind that David Weller account, how does that take away from the footage he compiled highlighting Jason's shit? Because here's the thing. While I have been talking a lot of shit on Ken Wheeler, the subject shouldn't revolve around him. The question shouldn't be, is Ken Wheeler behind this? It should be, are these girls telling the truth? The question shouldn't be, how do I defend myself from false allegations? It should be, how can these models protect themselves from photographers like this? The Jason and Lanier ship broke the beginning of July. That Marcus Hyde situation came out a couple weeks later, and still the only mention I see of either of this crap is from non-photographers and people like Ken Wheeler. And that's fucking sad. Not everyone has to make some sort of confrontational video like this, but I'm ashamed of how silent the vast majority of photographers are on the subject. Is Ken the only one? I don't want to give him too much credit because I seriously doubt he'd care if Jason wasn't involved. This shit has been a problem for a long fucking time, before even Terry Richardson. And still you can find countless videos on what lenses are best for portraits, how to conduct yourself on a nude shoot, and just added how to protect yourself from accusations, whether they be true or false, which Jason knew beforehand, given he picked up Emily as an assistant after Sony dropped him. But there is a virtual nothingness when it comes to these models having a place to turn to with resources on what to look out for. No one says, hey, if the photographer isn't cool with you bringing a family member or a significant other on your first shoot, or he's asking you to shoot nude time for print, then that's probably a bad sign. At least not prior to that Northup video. Nobody talks about the blacklist models had to create to protect themselves from predatory photographers. If they do, it's within the frame of false accusations, not how little resources models have against grimy practices. Least of all when agencies and other photographers would rather turn their backs than get involved in drama. No, we don't say that shit because it's not important to the photography community. It's not camera gear, it's not editing styles, it's not some upbeat vlog that makes you want to shoot film. This conversation, regardless of who makes it, whether it's the Northups joking about their own experience to ease the tension, or me just cussing up a storm others can use to distract themselves from the subject, it's a hard look at the very ugly reality of photography. Models have reason to be on guard with photographers, and we choose to shame them instead of addressing the cause. So maybe Jason gets sent to jail, or maybe he doesn't, but models will continue to have to look out for one another, with inexperienced ones being left to walk this hellscape alone. Yeah, maybe you asked a random person on the street to model for you and all went well, but what about the photographers who took advantage of that naiveness and ignorance to the industry? I know I'll probably get a lot of shit for painting the community in this light, but look at the fucking silence from the public forums on the subject. Again, models have a blacklist of photographers to watch out for. Supporters talk about protecting reputations from foundless accusations. Meanwhile, victims have zero clue on where to turn to but social media. Especially when no law was broken or nothing can be proved, but the definition of professionalism was clearly ignored. I know this video is going a lot longer than planned, but hear me out. Jason wants to stress how the models accusing him are all from broken homes, implying they live in poverty until he comes along, yet fails to mention how none of that was a problem when they were shooting with him. Here's the thing. Why would he keep shooting these inexperienced models instead of hiring agency talent? And fuck you in advance if you're going to point to that latest video where I think he shoots with Brenda, I think it is. Or link to other shoots. We all know how often he shot with these girls. Even defenders of Jason realize he needs to stop shooting these girls, or at least pay them industry standards, especially when he's taking them away from homes and other job opportunities. It doesn't fucking matter if they're on the clock or not. They're still in some unfamiliar pace, hours away from home, relying on you to protect and provide for them. You should be paying them so they don't have to rely on you for meals. At the very least, you should be using business associated bank cards to cover these expenses added to the cost of doing business, because it's really not that hard. So I believe you took advantage of that dependency, because otherwise, given everything you've aired out, I'm suspicious why you haven't shared those receipts of these meals that they supposedly milked you for. And for the sake of transparency, I don't shoot agency talent, but I'm also not the one running workshops with 10 plus attendants at $250 a head. I know this video is more questions than anything else, and I could have included more clips to demonstrate some things, but you need to watch these women's videos and hear their accounts in their own words, not sound bites, because that's what Jason expected from these photo blogs for his hour-long video. Because Jason has only answered these women with sexism through and through, not so subtly implying sexuality is only an issue when he can't profit off it. That's why he'll have a camera behind Allie in lingerie, seeing zero issue with it, while claiming some thumbnail from Irene is begging for views.
Irene wants to talk about me. She brought a model to the shoot wearing lingerie. Not me. Irene does videos wearing bikinis showing her butt for views. If that works for her and her channel, that's great. But stop making this about sexual misconduct. Allie goes on to complain about another circumstance where we went to the Waldo Hotel in Clarksburg, West Virginia. While at the hotel, she went on to state that I placed a camera behind her that was shooting her butt. I put a camera on the ground to capture the powder that she was throwing in the air. Why is it on the ground? So it's not in the shots. I was shooting with the A9 at 20 frames per second. I'm not going to Photoshop light stands and a camera out of every single shot because I was doing consecutive shots.
Shoulder up. 1, 2, 3. I think you just hit my camera.
Did I? No, I hit the board.
Okay, good. Allie, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Go ahead and stand up, sweetheart.
I know there are concerns we are giving these models too much credit when they, according to Jason's camp, have no proof. But remember the environment and accusations. He's the one with the camera. They're the ones half naked at times without a phone. Or do you really expect them to have it on the ready mid-photo shoot? They may not be listing off specific moments where they were wronged in great detail, but they are describing a shit work environment where they eventually wised up with age. Again, use your fucking heads instead of parroting some Jason logic. Even for those of you watching this, don't just listen to me because you like me. Actually sit on those ideas and think about them. If you accept anything at face value or blindly, you're gonna be opening yourself up to being made a fool when someone starts asking questions. Yeah, but what about how these women conduct themselves, and doesn't questioning victims prevent others from coming forward? Again, use your fucking head here. There's a lot of talk about what women should have done or how they could have handled these situations. But remember, these are lessons that are learned from experience. And I seriously doubt Jade Galloway had any real experience at 14. And if we believe Jason when he says she only worked maybe 3 months prior to being 18, she was probably still inexperienced on what to do and how to handle herself. She was a child who trusted an adult. So are you going to blame her for not sounding the alarm sooner, or how she handled herself on camera, instead of the guy who presents himself as a professional who has entire videos directing his models? Well, he stopped short of calling it assault. It's obvious he wants us to go there when he suggests a cheek kiss or a shoulder touch is unwanted and sexual in nature, which, fair. Saying you're innocent of misconduct because you didn't kiss or hug back on camera when we all know we'd be asking Jason, what about your fucking wife? If you reciprocated, is stupid, even by his standards. It also ignores that he encouraged this behavior, and if I looked closely as he wanted to in some of these clips, I'm more inclined to believe he was staring at Jade's chest before anything else.
I'm tired.
Me too.
Are you? Snooze.
And in the event some of Jason's fans are still watching this and expecting some conclusion where, you know, Jason uploads a confessional video, don't hold your breath. The guy wouldn't even give a written statement because of how he had no control over how it was presented.
They're asking for a statement. This kind of a scenario requires much more than a statement. It requires the truth.
But if it does happen, I hope it makes his supporters think twice before blindly believing someone whose only defense is, I'm a nice guy. I'm not saying a photographer should lose work because they're being accused without evidence, but the thing these girls are saying and the similarities between details in sharing beds and kick me off if I touch you and doing farewell videos before publicly shaming them, and then vague model contracts he's never presented in defense of vague working expectations. I get it's such a small thing in the scope of the matter, but I think even seeing what kind of contract these girls signed would be a real eye-opener to the pros. That's all enough to raise some concern and should make people hesitate to blindly trust Jason. Forget the girls. Again, let me repeat. I learned about this whole situation from his own defense video. So he wasn't even guilty in my eyes until he ran his fucking mouth. So I don't even think he realizes how stupid he is for posting these videos responses instead of giving a written statement to those same photo blogs. Essentially, I'm saying Emily is shit at her job. Especially because in that second video he quickly deleted, he says this.
Throughout this time, I really did everything that I could to help. I really did. So when people talk about friendships and whatever else, people are getting things really twisted. She had her car shipped from Hawaii. I drove her down to pick up her car. Car was locked out. I helped her get it. Now this was a good 2 hours plus one way from my house, 4 hours round trip. She wanted a new look. She wanted a new life, a new beginning. I got her a nose ring. I paid for it. She didn't like the tattoo because it reminded her of her husband, now ex-husband. I paid for that to get that fixed. She needed a co-signer for her apartment. I did that. She wanted the security of knowing that she'd be able to make it in her apartment, so my wife and I paid for that.
And this.
I just got done talking to Richard, and he is not happy at all with all of the traveling. Once again, I'm sorry, and thank you for everything. She left out the fact that she got pregnant. And she left that out of her video, my friends. That's pretty big.
And this.
Joyce didn't even complain about anything sexual except saying something happened with her friend. Didn't happen.
My husband had dropped me off at the airport twice and went to shake Jason's hand, and Jason ignored him. He would constantly talk bad about him. He would call him a wetback. He would call, he said, why would you want to date a Mexican man? You need to date a white man, and what's wrong with you? You want to fix people instead of, you know, date people who are Caucasian. And he would constantly call like my husband a beaner and tell me that I just want to date losers who are beaners. Now, in the past I had dated some losers, I ain't gonna lie, but I just thought it was so disrespectful to keep calling him a beaner. And I told him, you know, my husband's a really good guy. I deserve more than this, you know. And I started to complain to my family, and my mom just kept, hang in there, you know, but in defense of my family, I wasn't like 150% completely honest about everything that was going on, like kind of like the grabbing and the touching and the really young girls that were like 17, barely turning 18, and him making comments like, oh, I can't wait till you turn 18 years old. I can't wait till you turn 18 years old, you know. He just started to like push boundaries more and more and more and more. And just his aggressiveness towards me, like not finding models that would get naked. I mean, I would try to get on Model Mayhem and, you know, go through the people who would shoot nude, and like no one would, or unless you're going to pay them, and he didn't want to pay anybody.
Oh, we didn't do a model release yet. So hi, I'm Jason.
Hi, I'm Ashley.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What is your first and last name?
Ashley Miamontes.
Surprised it's your first time?
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
A few days later, he I guess invited the model that I had originally introduced to him out on a shoot. And I thought, wow, I didn't know about this shoot. And I was wondering, why he was shooting the model that I had found, my best friend's cousin, so much. And I was surprised that she had gone on a shoot alone with him. That same day that he did that shoot, he had called me and said, do not get on social media today. Don't post anything on social media. And I wasn't really sure why. I thought maybe he didn't want his wife to know that he was out shooting, because she was always kind of like left alone. And since, like I said in the beginning, we weren't allowed to tell Kara anything, and she was very much out of the loop. I think I called him or texted him and said, wow, you did another shoot with this particular model. And he was like, yeah. And he said that he was going on a trip to Las Vegas to do some shooting, and to let her know that he wanted her to go. So I sent her a text telling her, he wants to shoot you again. He said he would take you to Vegas, all expense paid. And I can't be there because I had other obligations. Like I said, I was trying to step back. So she wouldn't answer any of my text messages.
Hi guys. My name is Ashley Miamontes. The first ever shoot that I shot with was the LA River shoot. It was a great experience because that was my first ever, professional photo shoot. After that, he called me up and was like, hey Ashley, I need a model for the shoot today. And I was just like, well, I must have done great because he wants to shoot me again. Going towards Barstow, and it was in the middle of the mountains with desert, beautiful outdoor place to shoot. I asked if Joyce and everyone kind of who was at the other shoot were going to be there, and he said yeah. I'm like, okay, cool, because I couldn't bring anyone that day. Like I said, it was short notice. We got to the shoot. I sat in the car for a little bit because he was setting up the lighting and, setting up for the shoot. And I get out of the car and to start shooting, I told him that. I was like, hey, where's Joyce? And where's the video guy and everyone else? And he was just like, oh, Joyce couldn't make it anymore. Something came up with her and her kids. Something like that, he said. Okay, then. And then what about, the guys that help you shoot? They're always there. So, whatever. He never gives me anything yet to prove to me that I couldn't trust him or he was a bad guy. So I shot. I shot with him towards, when the sun was going down, getting towards nighttime. I told him, hey, I'm gonna go behind, the doors to change my outfits. Because like I said before, we're outside and there's no bathroom, nothing for me to change, go and change. So she went around to the vehicle that Jason had driven there and opened both the doors to the car. And she had went to change in between the doors of the car, and that she was fully, as she was changing, she was fully nude. And allegedly, I have to say allegedly because this is what she told me. I opened the two car doors to kind of block me from the side and the front, and I was in between them changing. Mid-change, I was naked because I was in mid-change already, putting on my next outfit. Comes up behind around the door, and he touches my butt from the back going to my private part, kind of gropes it, I guess you could say, and says, good job, you're doing great. Right there, I got the most disgusting chills in my body. I was scared. I didn't even know what to say or what to do. I was scared. I just wanted to get home. I just wanted to be out of the car with him. I just wanted to leave because I didn't know if this guy was just going to leave me there, I didn't know. I was, like I said, I was in the middle of nowhere. I was scared. I didn't want to be left there. I barely had service, only at a certain spot. The next day, I got text messages from him and saying that they wanted me to go to Vegas to shoot with him in this big shoot. I didn't reply at all. Mind you, I wanted to be a model so bad. It was my dream. Don't you think that I would, in a heartbeat, go to Vegas to shoot with this guy? Go to Cancun. He said they're gonna pay for my room, for everything, all expenses paid. Don't you think I would have went? This could have been it for me. In my head, this could have been my break. Then I got a text message from George saying, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Like, you can talk to me. Because I didn't write back to her. I mean, she was his project director. I was in my head, I'm like, she knew about this shoot. Like, why wasn't she there? Like, why did she let me go alone with him if she knew, like, who he was? She had no idea that he planned that or he wanted to shoot that. She said that day he told her to, like, stay off social media and stuff, and it clicked to her on why.
He's such a fucking idiot. He also brings up models I didn't even know were involved and describes a weird-ass relationship that could easily be taken as a sugar baby relationship in nature. I'm not saying sex or the like was involved, but it's hard, especially with all of this information, not to imagine him hoping for it. Again, this is all unverified by any model, but since he brought it up, paying for tattoos and entire apartments rent? What the fuck?
And he proceeded to tell me about this modeling job, and at first it sounded super cool. I'll take you to London, I'll drag you around the world, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, okay, cool, but I was kind of concerned because he had been through all these modeling assistants, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, is he a perv? Is he just like a jackass? He proceeded to tell me about how the position involved companionship. And he starts telling me about how he couldn't keep modeling assistants. And I was like, great, because this is what I wanted to talk about. Like, what are these girls saying the reason is? Before I just jump on a plane with somebody who, just because they're well known doesn't mean they're a good person, or that they're a safe person, or that they respect boundaries or act appropriately. He proceeded to tell me about how the position involved companionship. So I asked him to elaborate. So he starts telling me about how basically you're his girlfriend. You sleep in bed. He doesn't expect you to warm up to him immediately, but he does expect it to be quickly. And rub his shoulders, sleep in his bed, give him sexual favors, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and I distinctly remember telling him, that's probably why you can't keep a good modeling assistant, because the people who know what they're doing don't prostitute themselves out when they put in a job application like, oh, also I want to be a prostitute. And, it's not, so I told him, if you ever want a modeling assistant that you don't expect that out of, then please let me know.
$600 in New Orleans and $325 just now. That's $925. Shouldn't it be $1,250? $125 for 10 days, $1,250. He said I have to check to see how many travel days versus shooting days there were. I thought it was $125 a day when on the road with you or your team. Yeah, that's true. When you're actually doing the companion role. Why? Because when it's a non-shooting day, you're actually still working as a companion, which is a benefit. When you're doing what the other girls do, it's not. It's one reason I've been wanting you to find your right role in place. By the end of the trip, it seems like you definitely did. So in the future, it'll be $125 a day when we're together. So let me just stop right there and talk about how he just clearly said that, one, I'm not a model. That I had to choose to be a model or choose to be a companion. So in his video, when he points out about, well, Sierra's doing this and the other models aren't doing it, first of all of us models were always buddy-buddy with them. But second of all, I wasn't just a model. I was actually in a transition phase where, or rather a phase where I didn't know what I was. He didn't know what I was. He wanted me to be his companion. I wanted to have the role of a companion. It pays more money and it's a freer job. But I just wasn't willing to do all this other stuff. So when he starts guilt tripping me, and by the end of the, again, to quote, by the end of the trip, it seems you definitely found my right role in place of being a companion, which the end of that trip is New Orleans, is when I was jumping up and down, touching his shoulders, when I kissed him on the cheek, when I was going for the camera, which, by the way, Jason takes things out of context completely, uses it to spin this story about, here's this girl's being inappropriate. Notice I don't reciprocate. Actually, you smiled and kind of bashfully like, well, okay. You didn't seem uncomfortable at all. When I was jumping up and down, you didn't seem to mind it either. What's my pay right now? Just $100 a shoot day and $50 when we're traveling? That's the model pay, yeah. So then he says, Sierra, I'm not trying to short you money. I haven't done a straight up day by day breakdown, but you can't half outdo the job. But you can't half outdo the job. Stay with the girls / not know what you want to do, go back and forth, etc. It's just too much. That's why after Jekyll, I told you we had this argument that lasted for hours when we were on Jekyll Island. That's why we're on, why after Jekyll, I told you I was moving you in with the girls and in their role until, again, as a model, until you decided what you wanted to do. Things get a lot easier for everyone once you find your space. It appeared to me that you did by the end of the trip. That's why I said you had until the end of this month to decide and for me to evaluate to see if it's the right fit. I don't know if Jason thought that he could get away with what he got away with because maybe he thought after this conversation I'd be desperate enough to do more things to make it seem like I was a companion, or if he thought just because I gave him a kiss on the cheek in New Orleans that was a green light to do whatever he wanted. Maybe he was genuinely confused, but it certainly isn't a picture of I was inappropriate towards him completely unwarranted.
I told him that the FBI was investigating him over sexual assault claims and various other knick-knack type things, and he said, but in my case I quit on February 20th, 2018.
Two weeks later, she sends me a text message.
I remember sending Jason a text saying like, hey, I still think about you from time to time.
Still thinking of you from time to time with a heart. Just think about that. Still thinking of you from time to time with a heart. To which I reply back, thank you, I hope you're doing well. This is now a woman who has changed her story many different times.
And I am going to go into what a companion is, which is what I was for Jason. What a travel companion is. I will get into that. But first I want to say travel companions and models were separate. They're not really allowed to interact because a travel companion's job is to stay by Jason's side. That's what he would say all the time. Your job is to stand by me. There are plenty of workshop attendees that kept mentioning with me and with previous models, why do you keep calling these models over to stand by you? And it's because he would tell us either at the workshop, whisper in our ear, remember your place is by me.
I get suites. The vast majority of the time, it's always been a suite, like a Residence Inn, where we're setting up and there's 2 bedrooms. I'm separated in one bedroom, there's another person in one bedroom, and more often than not, it was 2 models sharing a bed on the sofa bed, to be honest with you guys. That's the way it's been. When you have people tell you, just put me in your bags, or I'll drag your bags for you, I just want to be there. And then they turn around and stab you in the back and say, oh, there's only one bed. Now they fail to mention there's like sofa beds, rollaways, and all sorts of other stuff. Again, lying by omission.
He went over the sleeping arrangements. He said that because of his budget, for the most part, on most trips, we would have to bunk together. Him, myself, and the other person that was part of our team. I simply said that if there was a floor, if there was a blanket, if there was a sofa, that I didn't have an issue. I was okay with it.
The only thing that I actually really want to discuss, I'll show you plenty of inappropriate texts that I've gotten from Jason, just showing that it's not that, you know, just because I was painted in the light where, oh, look at this girl just being totally inappropriate, totally unwarranted towards me, just because he says that doesn't mean it's true. And how it was months of ongoing. So I wanted to speak to the companion role again. It started as an expectation of, you know, XYZ, and then just became more and more boundaries. First place we went to was a hotel with one bed, and I actually had a panic attack and had to move to the couch, which I also have text about, but I don't feel like I have to show you all this stuff, that stuff anyways. Or maybe I should, I don't know, but and it was just going back and forth between me wanting to keep my job and him telling me basically, you have to act like you really like me. You have to act like you're my travel girlfriend.
I wanted to try doing shoots with models that were like sexy shoots, like with a guy or with a girl. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? What are you willing to do? How far are you willing to go is something that he said. And then he, you know, talked about me shooting nude, and I said, well, I don't want to do a nude, and I told him that a couple times, and he's like, well, hey, I mean, if you want to get out of your shell, that's what you need to do.
And after the shoot, he wanted to go and shoot some nudes in the hotel, and which is something everybody knows I do, so no big shock or anything. I do shoot, you know. I have this very strict policy about nobody's being in my pictures with me unless it's pre-planned, pre-discussed. We've talked about all the proper boundaries, all the things you would expect, you know, if you're actually in the industry, that you would expect a model to kind of cover her bases, you know, in that kind of scenario. This photographer kept repeatedly kind of saying things like, well, you know, I'd love to put this camera down and get in those pictures with you. Maybe we don't have to take pictures, and I'd love to get in that bed with you. And it was making these sexual passes at me, which as a nude model, truthfully, I'm very used to. I work with a lot of well-known photographers. I've worked with plenty of those, and I've worked with a lot of amateur photographers, and so I'm used to a lot of different levels of professional behavior, although I was pretty shocked that someone of that popularity, I really feel like it's a better word.
Eventually this person said, hey, you know what, I think it's best if you sleep on the second bed because it just makes more sense if I need to, you know, if I need to show you something I'm working on, you're there. I don't need to yell at you. If you have any questions, you don't have to yell at me. You don't have to get up. You know, just all that. So even though I wasn't comfortable because I felt like I was invading his space, I agreed. I said, you know what? He's right. It just makes more sense. So I started sleeping on the second bed. If there was only one bed, I would automatically put my things on the sofa and, you know, be back to the original sleeping arrangements.
It worked because he straight up told me in Jekyll Island, like, if you don't figure out what a companion is, basically, or, you know, whatever, you're going to have to make a decision whether you're a model or whether you're a companion. And so, I don't know if that had a lot to do with it, or if I just, you know, I genuinely wanted to give the girl some space, because it was kind of, I mean, for a room that was packed as much as it was, with all of our stuff, because we all had a bunch of modeling gear with us, that, you know, I figured it might be easier if I just stayed with Jason. So he asked me later in the night, you know, what's going on, and I said, hey, I think that, shoot, I just lost the text. I said that I wanted to stay with him, and we slept in the same bed, but like polar opposites of the bed, and nothing happened that night.
You know, a lot of my travels and like experiences traveling were with this person, so how was I to know that cots were available in hotels? I thought, you know, they had pull-out couches, so why would you know. There was no offer to book another room at that time. No, I knew what was expected of me at this moment. Due to the couch looking like a prop and me not wanting to sleep on the filthy floor, I got in the bed. Again, big mistake. Another regret. I was terrified to even ask for another room because you talked about how models were always spoiled and that people used you. I never wanted to be like that. Although I was uncomfortable with the situation, I had no legitimate reason to distrust you. I promise I won't touch you in your sleep, and if I do, just kick me. Was the last thing you said to me before you turned the lights out.
You looked me dead in the eye and told me that if you touch me in my sleep, to push you over. And then you go on camera and say you would never even think of sleeping in the same bed as me. And the worst part is you manipulated it to seem that like everyone I had worked with, that all of our crew members, everyone in the past, like this was okay with them. So I felt guilty. I literally apologized to you for it.
At the end of the month to prove to me that you want to be my companion, which, by the way, the end of that month we didn't even get there because that was Vegas and that was the end. And that was as far as it went. And I don't know if Jason thought that he could get away with what he got away with, because maybe he thought after this conversation I'd be desperate enough to do more things to make it seem like I was a companion, or if he thought just because I gave him a kiss on the cheek in New Orleans that was a green light to do whatever he wanted. Maybe he was genuinely confused, but it certainly isn't a picture of I was inappropriate towards him completely unwarranted.
I want you to imagine what you would do if you had given up your normal working everyday life and chosen a dream job, and after several months of things progressively getting more stressful and your boundaries getting pushed more and more, you eventually, ultimately, actually get sexually assaulted. A real sexual assault. Not even just a quick squeeze on the ass or something like that. I mean a legitimate sexual assault. What would you do? Well, you'd probably quit immediately. I mean, some people probably wouldn't, or they might not. But in my case, I quit on February 20th, 2018. And if you've ever gone through a trauma like that, now this happened over a year ago, so I can talk about it without like totally losing it in front of the camera. But when you go through a trauma like that, first of all, it's not just, okay, well that happened, let's move on to the next thing. It takes a while to process what happened. And for me, I was sitting at an airport in Las Vegas wondering how the hell I gave up my life for a dream for this to happen. And I think it was, February 20th, so it was about 2.5 months. Yeah, it was about 2.5 months, maybe close to 3 months before I started even opening up. At first I was trying to wrestle with, well, like, do I still try to save face? Like, I mean, as weird as it sounds, like, you know, I remember sending Jason a text saying, like, hey, I still think about you from time to time. You know, hope everything's good with you. And he would in return send texts that are like, yeah, you know, things are great, and I think that you're amazing, and you'll do great things. And it started just a complete spiral of just depression, anxiety. I didn't want to talk to I couldn't even talk to my family about what had happened because I didn't want to put them through the trauma of what happened.
The next question is, why didn't you girls talk to each other sooner if there's so many of you, and why didn't you, figure this out sooner? And my answer to that is because, we were pinned against each other. We were manipulated and lied to. This person would drag these other girls' names through the dirt and make them look crazy. I witnessed, we weren't shown the full message half the time. We would be shown messages and we weren't shown the full context. Phone calls would be made requesting a specific set text be sent. And then, it made this person looked like they were obsessed with him.
So I see this video of complete slander, because Ken had made a video about Jason not giving a guy with cancer a refund or something like that, and I don't know if that's true or not, but that's neither here nor there. So I see Jason release this video where he completely butchered this man, and I remember at the end of his video he said, you think that you have nothing to lose, but you do, Ken. You do. I will find out what it is and I will take it from you. And then he does this inspirational speech for his followers, never give up on your dreams, and ends it. And I remember thinking, that scumbag is doing the same thing to anyone, not just models. So, what do you do when you're afraid to talk and you don't know whether you get in trouble if you said certain things? And you want to kind of start taking this guy down.
Now you may be watching this and say, what does this have to do with Ken Wheeler? Guys, I know it sounds like something out of a crazy movie, but that's the way Ken Wheeler is. He is obsessed with me. He is a stalker of mine. He has spun these lies. He has tied everyone together to create an environment that will destroy my career. He has been hounding me and chasing me, accusing me of things for over 5 years now. You may be watching this and saying, oh, Jason, come on. There's allegations against you. How is this related to Ken Wheeler? Well, I'm going to turn that back around and say, how is it that every single person that's speaking about it is talking to Ken Wheeler? Now, I anticipate after releasing this video, you'll see people say, well, I'm not talking to Ken Wheeler, but they all are. They all are. Done these horrible things to you, but you still have my pictures up on your social media. You still have my pictures, and you're asking for the magazines that I put you in. I had private investigators do a run-up on all of you guys. They sent my sponsors emails letting them know that this was nothing short of a shakedown. It's evil, it's wrong. And Ken Wheeler sits back in his basement and takes glee and laughs and loves every minute of it, because what he does is he gets everyone else to do his dirty work because he is a coward and he doesn't have the guts to do it himself. And what ends up happening is he's the mastermind for everything going on. But the person making the allegations, they're the ones who pay the price. It's sad. He's victimizing you. He's preying upon your impulsivity. He's preying upon your bitterness and your sadness. And he's doing it, and it's going to destroy your life. Ken is the distribution channel for all this. Sierra is the little recruiter. Think of Sierra as the recruiter. Now, you may think I'm crazy, but again, I'm going to show you proof. Sierra is reaching out to anyone who's ever worked with me, asking them if they have anything, any dirt to share on me, any bad stories. She's pushing this companion narrative. She sent this text message to Kristen, seeking dirt, asking Kristen to join her. She reached out to her twice in May of 2018. Kristen and I have always maintained a good friendship, even after she left. So why Kristen's saying stuff now is beyond me. I think she's been completely lied to, this whole groupthink thing, but I'm going to get into that. But I mention that because you need to understand where Kristen's mindset was at in May of 2018. Sierra is texting her this stuff, and again, you're looking at it now. And Kristen's response at the time was, "Can someone please tell this crazy bitch to leave me alone, LOL." And now you stand together. But a year ago, she was a crazy bitch. Revisionist history. Character assassination disguised as sexual misconduct.
After I found out from this other girl that he had assaulted her within a short amount of time of assaulting me, I finally got like some guts, and I was like, well, if it had been just me, then I probably would have dropped it. But now that I'm finding out it's another girl, and I had suspicions about other girls, so I started digging and asking people, has Jason done certain things to you? And I got different areas of responses. Some models I couldn't even talk to because they were either still with him or very close to him, and I just didn't know if I could trust them because I didn't want Jason to know that I was actually doing something. I wanted him to see me as someone who was too scared to do anything. I got a cease and desist letter from Jason, like, hired some crackpot lawyer to try to get us to cease and desist and take down posts and stuff. And he actually sent me the same exact letter that he sent to Ken Wheeler, and it said like a lot about just, you know, you made these allegations, and you said the FBI's investigating. How do you know? Do you know the FBI? No, you don't. That's actually like kind of how it was worded, but again, I'll post it. And then I kindly sent him an email back and said, listen, buddy, first of all, I'm not Ken Wheeler, so his litigation or whatever you want to call that, or I don't know if it's litigation, I don't know. The defamation suit you have against him doesn't really fall on me. We're two separate people, so you don't have a claim. Also, can you launch or can you release my model release and my NDA while you're at it, while you're talking to Jason? Because he told me not to respond to him anymore. But I said, basically, dude, you don't have a case against me, and I would like any kind of documentation that I worked for Jason, though. And I never heard from them again, so that was that. And I did want to clear something up that I totally forgot about. A lot of you don't know the reason why Jason was dropped as a Sony artisan, and I'm not sure. I really haven't followed Jason's videos pretty much since I left, with the exception of this last one. So I don't know what he told you, but let me shed some light on what happened. On May 22nd, I told you that the FBI opened an investigation against Jason Lanier. On May 20, I gotta double check. 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 20. One of those days, I sent an email to Sony. And I said, hey, just so you know, there is an investigation. Again, not defamation, not just I'm making up crap. I stated a fact. I said, hey, just so you know, there's an investigation regarding multiple sexual allegations. And I said, hey, as Sony, you might want to drop this guy. But in case you might have not even thought about it, here's the guy that's representing you. And then posted a link to Jason's video that he had already posted, that Jason had posted himself, about how he was going to hunt Ken Wheeler down and take his life from him and ruin his life. And so I said, by the way, this is your Sony artisan that is representing your company, and like, you guys are pretty reputable, so I'm pretty sure you don't want this falling on you. And by May 24th, Jason was gone. Jason was no longer part of Sony. I did get an email also from Sony saying, cool, we received it, thank you. And that was as far as that went. 2 days later, Jason's gone. Or 1 day later, I don't remember which one. I'll find out. So, there's the truth. That's something that Jason didn't mention at all in his video.
So yeah, there is more, and I could honestly dig into the second video with a whole other hour, but this video is already long enough. The main point is this: if you're defending Jason Lanier because you think this Me Too movement has gotten out of hand, you're essentially thinking like this jackass. In which case, you are a big part of the problem with the photography community. And I'm not saying women don't lie, but I am saying abusers do. And if you want to think feminism is some grand ploy to make men fearful of being labeled as sexual predators for hitting on women or even being in the same room as them, then you bought into some right-wing bullshit. It is far more common for women to keep things like rape a secret rather than lie about it, at least based on some actual statistics from colleges. Again, it's not hard to imagine considering the conversation around sexual assault. Women's bodies are essentially a crime scene, and the public demands in-depth forensics. Victims have to be composed and answer questions appropriately while being psychoanalyzed and physically probed. I'm not saying that to garner sympathy, but I want to put that victim's mindset into perspective for people only thinking in terms of reputation and clout, since we're on a subject that isn't natural light versus strobes or primes versus zooms. You want it to be a clear-cut issue in everything else but photography. The world is shit enough without everyone treating the disenfranchised as the root of life's problems. So yeah, I don't know how to end this. I just wish I wasn't the only one, or one of the few in the photography channels, to be talking about this issue, because it's really fucking sad. Some ex-punk who struggles to get work is really the first to make this sort of video. The guy with a potty mouth, not countless sponsored photographers with ties to the industry, the ones who could probably do more and could easily make a sponsor-friendly video on safety. I don't care if it sounds like I'm calling out the community as a whole, especially considering how talentless I am compared to many of them. I just see it as my duty, doubly so because it was another YouTuber I have watched in the past. So Jason or Emily, if you are watching, just come out with it instead of dragging these women through the mud. I watched that second video. You're not disproving anything. If anything, I have far more questions than I do answers after that video, because yeah, I do believe these women are hiding details, but I think most of those details are things you don't want coming out, especially with how much more information you came out with than needed to come out with. Just face it, your roosters have come home to roost. As for the women, Joyce, Sierra, Jade, can't remember all of you, I'm sorry, but I hope this doesn't come off as white knighting, but if you can't get justice, I hope you at least don't allow this experience to cast a shadow over the rest of your lives. And if nothing else, I hope this ordeal paves the way for real discussion on the matter and prevents future models from being taken advantage of. And that other photographers, the good ones, actually speak out against peers instead of policing your statements. I'm sorry I'm one of the few so far, but hopefully bigger names will follow suit. And better still, I hope the photography community stops fostering an environment where these kinds of predators can thrive. We should not be prioritizing monetary or social capital over ethics. Seriously, fuck that. So to all the models and the countless who remain silent, and to every stranger approached on the street by some grimy fuck, I'm sorry we failed you. I'm sorry the best you can hope for is an underground network of anonymous models reporting these types of photographers and reaching out if you're okay. I'm sorry places like Instagram target call-out posts of harassment and delete accounts when you don't even have that big of a following over those kinds of issues when you publicly speak out of it. I'm sorry this is the state of things. I wish you all the best. Take care.